Welcome to We'll Throw the After Party. I'm so disappointed our fourth co-host just jumped out of Alexis's arms and scattered off. We almost had our first ever cat co-host on the show. What happened?
He was really fighting for it. And I don't know that he knows what he wants. He was doing that he was doing that like, I need mama. And then all of a sudden he was like, no, I don't. So I don't.
Oh my God. That's so funny. Marissa is now having technical difficulties, but she has not had the last half hour. So that's so fun for us. Marissa, why don't I pull you in? You can troubleshoot and we'll kick off the show while Marissa figures out what's going on. Welcome back, everybody. Lots of familiar faces in the chat today. Hello, my friends. This is our Shadow and Bone takeover show. So shout out to everyone from the Shadow and Bone community who has been, supporting the meme development of the week as we've all been watching back or watching for the first time Shadow and Bone. But we also have lots to talk about outside of Shadow and Bone tonight, including a very big announcement from Miss Taylor Swift last night. We're entering our Speak Now era. Very exciting. I want to know how excited everybody is for some Taylor Swift news. July 7th, we're getting Speak Now, Taylor's version. Before the show, we were talking a little bit about where we were during the original Speak Now era, and I have some really clear memories of the Speak Now era. Alexis, I want to know where you come in when it comes to Speak Now, because I know you're kind of Red. That was your Taylor album. So where's Speak Now for you?
Yeah, you all were talking about being in like the 8th grade. I started undergrad in like 2011. So I would have been like in that, like the journey to my first year of college. But I had been dating a guy who also was like twice my age, and was like going off to get like his master's in writing at Wilmington and like leaving me behind. And it was a whole situation. And so there are certain songs on Speak Now that I definitely like sang at the top of my lungs in my pickup truck because they really hit that moment, which I think is one of the things about Taylor Swift that I think has become a little more underrated in the conversation recently is like just how much like we grew with her. I think now we have a tendency to talk about like whatever next stage she's going to go through, rather than like really connecting with like, I went on this journey and like she was hitting those beats in her journey at the same time, which is one of the reasons that her music to me is so relatable and so powerful. So that was kind of where I'm at. I'm very excited. I mean, I think a lot of us kind of suspected that this was coming. But yeah, I'm excited. I don't know if that actually answered your question, but
that answered it perfectly. And I think it's cool. Like, I'm losing my thoughts. Sorry, I haven't been feeling well all day, but I feel like my brain is like in jello, like moving so slowly. But I think it's really cool that you can like match not just eras and times in your life with Taylor like that, but also like such finite details, like the dating a guy older than you matched to the song about dating the guy older than you. Like, it's like those specifics are so interesting, I think. And I think this is, of all of the albums to scream in a pickup truck, it's Speak Now. Like, it's not Fearless and it's not Debut to me. Debut is like, I don't even have, like, in my head, those songs are like, I don't even have my driver's license yet. Like, those are not the pickup truck screaming songs. It's Speak Now when you're like, let's run away from the chapel. Like, all you are is mean. Like, those are the scream along songs of country Taylor.
Yeah, I also, I still to this day try to force my mom to connect with this music, right? So I'll be like, this is important because of these like 72 Easter eggs. And she's like, okay. But I distinctly remember Dear John being the first time my mom was like, oh, very clear through line to like what is happening and like connecting. And like, she still jams out on the treadmill with Dear John to this day. So like,
amazing.
Yeah.
I love. Marissa, where were you in the original Speak Now era?
I was not an invested member of the Speak Now era. We did the math. I was in 8th grade and I was musical theater only all the time. I The day Speak Now came out, I was playing Belle in my middle school's production of A Christmas Carol, and I was gearing up for auditions for the middle school musical. And I was exclusively listening to musical theater and going to tap class. But I did go back through my like iTunes collection, and I did own Speak Now songs. I just did not own the full album. So I'm excited to be able to like listen to the album in full for the first time. Like, I mean, I've listened to the album in full since but like, listening to Taylor's version in full for the first time will be like a new fun experience. Cause like I knew Fearless. I knew Red-ish. But Red was not like a pivotal moment in my life, but like I can very clearly pinpoint, like Alexis, where I was during Speak Now. I just wasn't really a part of Speak Now. So like thinking about 8th grade me and listening to Taylor's version will be very interesting.
I'm so excited for you to have this experience. I feel like of all the eras for Marissa to heal her inner child, it might be this one. It might be time.
It might be. I mean, Fearless really got me, but I think, yeah, end of middle school era, returning to that will be very interesting.
We're all healing together. Listen, all these re-releases are healing everyone, Taylor included. I love this comment from JJ. I never left my Speak Now era. If anyone is the king of Speak Now era, we know it's JJ. This is JJ's music. So I am so excited to see you on release night and see what the vibe is. It's going to be, for me, a mess. I was actually thinking, I think this is the only Taylor era, because I joined the Taylor Swift fan community when Fearless came out, and then I saw her during the Fearless tour. So Speak Now was like my first time in the full swoop of a Taylor album, launch beginning to end kind of thing. So that was very exciting. But I'm also realizing that was the last Taylor Swift era before One Direction came onto the music scene, which we know I was like dive into the deep end for.
That's
like
so real.
So that's my only era of Taylor until One Direction like broke up that is untouched by the other music tastes I had in my teenage years. Like it was all Taylor Swift all the time. I remember getting the deluxe Speak Now, which I have like right there, for Christmas, and putting it in the CD player, like the family CD player, and playing it on Christmas morning. My family being like, "Can we listen to Christmas music?" And I was like, "No, we have to listen to the deluxe songs." Like it was very intense. So I have so many happy memories with Speak Now. I remember my 8th grade teacher was like playing like Taylor songs in class because I was that obsessed with her, and like I'd wear the Taylor shirt to dance practice, and like it was such a thing for me. So I'm excited to jump back into it, and I'm gonna make my rant this week a little bit about Speak Now. So we'll come back to it. But other than the big announcement that we are in for another era of the year, how's everyone's week been? What have we been enjoying? I think that we all have a bit of a list this week, but Alexis has something really interesting on her list. And I just have to ask you to go first because I'm so intrigued what this is. So why don't you read what you wrote and then explain to the class what you enjoyed this week?
What I wrote was discovering a nearly 10-year-old meme. And what happened was, this was a week for me. This was my last week in the office. So like my schoolwork was technically finished, but like I had to be there to help undergrads all week. And I ended up being like deceptively busy. And so I didn't have time to watch any new media. And I was struggling for like what I was going to put in this blank. And I was messaging my husband today, and they sent me a message. Hang on, I'm scrolling back because I want to get the words. Yeah. I came out to have a good time, and I'm honestly feeling so attacked right now. And all of the first letters were capitalized. And I reacted by being like, oh, like my bad, like I didn't mean to attack you, like blah, 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 blah. And then they had to be like, no, like this was a thing on like Tumblr nearly like 10 years ago. And like, here are screenshots from that time about like what this meant, and like this part is this and this part is whatever. And then our conversation circled back to me being attacked, and I responded with a copy paste of their message, and they were like, "Hey, that should be your what you've been enjoying this week." So there we go.
I love this story. This is so great. Marissa, jump in.
That's incredible. I'm obsessed with every layer of that, honestly. I had no idea what was coming. I didn't know what the meme would even be, and all of that was perfect.
It is. I like forget that was a meme because it's just so ingrained in my everyday language. I'm now wondering how many times we've said that on this show, and you haven't realized we've been pulling a Tumblr deep cut. So that's something we'll have to think about when we're replaying old episodes. And it's something that we can use tonight when we talk about Shadow and Bone, because I know reading the notes you guys took on this show that I was feeling so attacked right now about what you were saying about me. So we'll make that our thread throughout the episode. Marissa, you weren't with us last week because you were out enjoying Into the Woods. Tell us about your experience.
Oh, you guys, I had a harrowing experience with Into the Woods. It was beautiful and traumatic. I was not on the show on Saturday because I wanted to see Stephanie J. Block and Sebastian Arcelus together in Into the Woods in Chicago. That did not happen because unfortunately Stephanie J. Block was out on vocal rest with an injury, which is fine. Totally understand. I still enjoyed the show. It was great. I then did decide to go back and see it again in hopes that I would see her once she was back in the show. And the one performance I chose was the one performance she didn't do. So I missed her twice, but that's fine. It was still a wonderful show. I had a great time both times. I've now seen this production 3 times, and it was worth all 6 Tony nominations. I honestly think it should have more than that.
I fully agree with that, but I will say that one of my favorite Tony nom reactions of all time came from Julia Lester getting her nom for Into the Woods. So I will give them, they should have had more, but the ones they got were like some of the best reactions I've seen in recent years.
Yeah,
so
truly. Yeah.
What else have you been enjoying this week other than your harrowing Into the Woods experience?
Well, I am not currently in my usual setup. I am in Michigan with my family. My entire extended family is on the floor below me. So if you hear any loud Italian outbursts, that is what is going on. But to get here, I drove at 8 o'clock this morning to Michigan, and I really enjoyed my solo road trip, actually. I expected that I was going to listen to an audiobook, but I ended up just listening to a playlist the whole time. It is a playlist that I made, and it is called Spicy Vodka Sauce because it makes me feel the way spicy vodka sauce makes me feel. And it kept me really perky and awake and engaged the whole time. I think it's a public playlist, so you can go find it. The cover art is the Scarlet Witch, as you would expect.
Alexis, as our keeper of memory of what has been said on this show, is that the most Italian thing Marissa has ever said on this show?
I think on this show, there was a conversation we had with Marissa once about like pink dinnerware. That is the most like Midwest Italian conversation we've had. But I don't know that made it to the show. So I would say this is
that was one of our first ever conversations in the group chat. And it was, I think we actually did talk about it on the show because it was about pink dinnerware that Marissa was receiving. And then Alexis started talking about your desire for pink dinnerware. And then I had just received a set of vintage pink dishes. And then we had a whole thing about pink dishes. That's the glue that ties we'll throw the after party together.
Yeah, I actually didn't want pink dinnerware for me, but my brother and his friends were in a journey of unpacking their toxic masculinity. Yes. So I gifted them pink dinnerware. Is how that went down. Yeah.
Incredible, incredible. I love growth. Marissa, we'll have to find the link to the playlist and drop it in the chat so everybody can enjoy.
Yeah, totally.
Love. I'll find it after the rants. Tony noms you also enjoyed this week. I think that's it for your list. You rewatched Heartstopper?
I did. Bunky was watching Heartstopper for the first time and talking about it, and I was in between, regular weekly updates, and I was like, I've got 4 hours to kill. I can watch all of Heartstopper. And I did. And it was great. I love it every time.
Love that. Love that. See, this is why I love this show, right? Because we find what our people are watching and we're like, we can squeeze that in. We can be along for the ride. I love the community viewing aspect of what we do here. It's great. I started my week continuing my rewatch of Shadow and Bone, and then my ears been bothering me, so I had to stop listening and watching things entirely, which is why I haven't been on TikTok this week. I've been reading Twitter like a novel. I've been enjoying not a lot, to be honest, because it's been a horrible week. It's been a horrible week. There was not a lot to be enjoyed. Shout out to all my friends that sent memes this week. There are lots of you that sent memes, lots of friends from work just keeping the memes going this week. I love it. I love my TikTok DMs when they're filled with memes from everyone. Everyone has permission to just spam me with anything that you think is funny right now. I'll take it. And I'll watch when my ear allows me to enjoy life again. But I enjoyed the 20 noms, and then Taylor's concert last night was fun, even though I could barely listen to it. And that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. And that's all I can say on this platform. So that's all I'm going to say. And with that, I have lots of things to rant about, and I can't rant about them here, but just know when you hear any anger in my voice, maybe I'm just projecting it onto this week's rant. For those of you keeping track on the bingo card of Liz not resetting the timer when the rants are over, because we didn't do rants last week, we've hit a new record, I think. When I logged into the show tonight, 13 days and 23 hours is the new record for how long I've let this timer go. And I wonder why my computer's been dying so quickly the past 2 weeks, because I never closed this tab, and it's just been running a clock ever since. So we'll reset this, and I will ask everyone to share what they're going to be ranting about tonight. Marissa, what rant are you sharing with the class?
I'm going to try and give a very broad explainer about the writer's strike. I'm going to try.
Love it. I love it. Alexis, what are you ranting about?
I am continuing with my ranking of hockey team names based on the list that my husband sent me. I will say that a preview of this list told me that this is one that I have a lot of opinions about. So I may go overtime on this list. And I also feel bad because although I am ranking these like just based off of like ranking them on the fly, I felt like I may have hurt people's feelings, which was kind of my intention, but like also not really. So I made a list this week of like things that I think constitute a good hockey player, like a hockey team name. And those, I feel like I should maybe share those with the class before I get started.
Please.
Valid? Okay, so my criteria are like that the name is like ice, Arctic, or cold related, like bonus points for an animal, or fire and heat related, because that would melt. So I feel like that's also valid. And then like it has to have the ability for a cute mascot, or it's just the Oilers. So like those are your 4 criteria that I will be rating under going forward.
Alexis, I think that those are rules that the NHL should adopt.
Thank you.
I think those are very reasonable.
Logically, I understand that there are other sports teams that like football, they don't have like football related names, right? They're just like whatever. But like I feel like hockey like cultivates like a certain, like they need like suited names that aren't just like generic sports.
100%.
I completely agree.
Sorry, Marissa, you shared what you are going to be ranting about. I got distracted because I did my layout on the screen, so I decided to switch it while we were talking. So it's just me, I think. Did I say what I'm ranting about?
No.
Okay, well, I'll share it now. This is a really good show for me. I'm having a really good time. I am having a good time. I just wish my brain wasn't like detached from my body. I'm going to be going through the track list of the original Speak Now and rating how bad I think the Taylor's versions are going to hurt. Yep, a little listicle in honor of the Speak Now TV announcement, and I'm really excited to see how I rate these. I haven't given it any thought. I will be using our ranking system, which includes alpines with and without accessories, tacos, which are always gluten-free for me, and tortilla warmers, but gluten-free tortillas go in this warmer. So we'll see where we land. Sound good? All right, I'll kick things off. We also have bonus Sly time tonight if anybody needs it, since Sly is not here. So if we don't get through our rants, feel free to, we'll just keep it running. All right, let's do it. Okay, so let's see how bad the track list is gonna hurt. Mine, I love this song. Mine was such a good single. It came out, it was the right like teetering country pop thing that she needed, and the music video is one of her best music videos to this day. So I think it's gonna be like a 5 out of 5 alpine with accessory hurt, which is kind of the top of the list. Sparks Fly, 10 alpines with accessories and a Home Depot.
So the Writers Guild of America, the WGA, is currently on strike. These writers are responsible for all TV, movies, any scripted content, essentially, and scripted entertainment. Their contract ran out on May 1st. New terms were not agreed to, so negotiations stalled between the WGA and the studios that contract them. And 98% of the WGA voted to strike. So the strike went into effect at midnight on May 1st.
Okay, so this is our Central Division list, apparently. I don't know what the fuck that means, but that's what it says at the top. And we're starting with the Arizona Coyotes, which I feel get a 3 out of 5 because the coyote does not feel like an ice animal and the mascot looks really disturbing. Then we have the Chicago Blackhawks, and this is a tough situation for me because name-wise, we get like a negative out of 10, right?
You can be negative. The name is terrible. Please don't think about my feelings.
Okay. So Sparks Fly has like a Home Depot sale on tortilla warmers with a line going out the door. Like it's going to hurt real bad, and I'm at the end of the line. Back to December, one of her best songs of all time. Every single cat in the state of Mississippi with accessories is how bad it's going to hurt. I'm not going to make it through that one. Speak Now is a fun, cute little bop. Was never my favorite from the album, but I get it and I respect it. So 5 alpines without accessories.
Writers are influential on every step of the production process, from development to editing, like the whole time they are relevant. So a lot of production has stalled, rightly so, because these writers deserve fair wages. They deserve protection from AI being brought in to write scripts that make no sense, and they deserve their streaming residuals. So every time I watch WandaVision, those writers get paid instead of just once, and even that is pennies.
Okay, so I think I said the Arizona thingy wrong, but that was 3 out of 10, not 3 out of 5. I don't know what I said. And I appreciate Marissa thinking that I was looking out for her feelings, but I wasn't. The Chicago Blackhawks is controversial to me because 4 years ago, they pulled up a farm league player who was an accountant who turned out to be this like fantastic goalie. And I think that's really great. But I think the indigenous appropriation in the name is terrible. So we've got like a negative for the name, but like a vaguely positive vibe situation happening there.
Okay. Dear John is going to be the most painful thing that Taylor Swift has ever released. I'm so excited for the internet to turn against John Mayer once again. It's going to be a 5 out of 5 alpine with accessory hurt scale, but then also a Chipotle full of gluten-free tacos for me to eat while I'm listening to the song because it will hurt so bad. Mean, I'm going to be fine. It's going to be one strong alpine with the best accessories in town. I'm going to have a fun time listening to that one. It won't hurt.
So what do we do to support members of the Guild? The most important thing is to listen to the members of the WGA, listen to the Guild, and what they would like us as media consumers to be doing in their support. One of the accounts that I really enjoy following and find very helpful is Adam Conover. He was one of the negotiators in the room. You might know him from Adam Ruins Everything. Also, the WGA East and WGA West accounts on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, all of that is constantly posting resources.
So the St. Louis Blues, the Winnipeg Jets, and the Minnesota Wild all get like a 5 out of 10 because like they're fine, but like they don't meet any of the criteria. The Dallas Stars get a 3 out of 10 because their WAG jackets were terrible and they really upset me on like a deeply personal level. The Colorado Avalanche, we're going to give like an 8 out of 10 because an avalanche feels snowy and icy, and I really like appreciate them for hitting the vibe, unlike everybody else.
Okay, Story of Us is 100% that song. If you were here back in the time, Story of Us was everyone's song. That was a fandom song. Get your I Was Here Before the World Found Out About Story of Us t-shirt while you can. It's going to be a 5 out of 5 Alpine hurt, and all the Alpines are crying into their gluten-free tacos. Never Grow Up. Enchanted, we know it hurts. We know it hurts. There's nothing that can prepare you for it. It's a 5 out of 5.
There's an entertainment community fund, which is raising resources for out of work writers and, providing snacks and things for people on the picket lines. There's a Vulture article that explains the strike. It's called Strikes for Dummies. I'll post the link to that. There's also a Mary Sue article on how to support writers that are on the picket line. The most important thing is that every show we've covered on this show is written by WGA writers. And whether we liked their writing or not, they deserve to be fairly compensated.
I will say that I'm a little scared because I feel like I know the Winnipeg Jets somehow, but I don't know how I know them. So putting that on the side. The Nashville Predators get a 3 out of 10 because while the name is generic and it's fine, the vibes are terrible. Like there was this one time where Carrie Underwood was married to somebody and they did a very pro purity culture interview that I have never gotten over. And I am just not a fan. And then also
you're muted.
Said we're going into bonus slide time, and I'm going to use the time because I need it. Better Than Revenge, bringing back casual misogyny, but we'll allow it this one time. It's going to rock hard like a gluten-free tortilla warmer. Innocent, all the pain. Haunted, all the gluten-free tortilla warmers. Killing it. Last Kiss, crying into a gluten-free taco with every Alpine in the world.
Oh, we're still going. Great. An excellent question. How do we support the studios at this time? We don't, because the studios suck, because they're not agreeing to the terms of the contracts. That's a terrible question. I'm sorry. I know who wrote that question. I feel like I can say that. I don't have anything else to say. Solidarity to the WGA. Support them.
So that gave really bad vibes that I've never gotten over. The other thing, which isn't really their fault, is that there's a player I appreciate who beat his father's scoring record in a losing game against the Predators. It was his 99th point and it was on an assist, but they lost the game. And while that is not the Predators' fault, it does feel like, even though this happened years ago, that they were personally trying to bring down my vibes. So that also contributes to their low ranking.
Okay, I'm gonna finish this and hit the 8-minute mark. Okay. I don't remember where I was. Haunted is pain. Last Kiss is pain. Long Live is even worse pain. Ours, take it or leave it. If this was a movie, it's my song and we already know it because it's out and it's not going to be on this album because it's 100% self-written. I'm not a fan of Superman, but other people are. That's nice for you. Back to December acoustic. Hurts. Haunted acoustic hurts. Mind Pop mix, meh. And the vault tracks, we'll see. Did we get there?
That was so impressive.
I mean, we just kind of threw the rating system out the window, but we got there. We got through every song on that track list. I will say the Disney CEO statement about the strike was such a crime to PR practitioners everywhere. I feel so bad for the people that probably wrote him something less controversial to say and he threw it out to say everything he wanted to say about the writers.
Any studio exec that has been asked for a comment so far, in my personal opinion, allegedly has done the wrong thing.
Yeah. For the sake of the PR profession, I have to believe that there are PR people working for each of these studios that are trying so hard, and just nothing is being taken by their spokespeople.
I also feel like a lot of the personalities I've seen have also tried their best, but not quite hit the mark. I don't know that any in supporting the strike that certain actors or show hosts have really felt genuine. I am pro Pete Davidson dropping by 50 pizzas because that just feels very on brand. But everything else has just felt a little. to me.
I saw so much. Oh my God, my Canadian accent just came out all the way when I said that. Oh my God. I saw a lot of slander around Jay Leno dropping off 2 boxes of donuts with a full camera crew and then immediately leaving. And then to see that how Pete Davidson showed up with the pizzas and then immediately joined the picket line was like a very interesting contrast to that, right? Like considering he's someone that's kind of coming back into the comedy space as an independent. He was supposed to host Saturday Night Live and he's writing his own shows. Like I was like, oh, that's really interesting. Like old school, new school. No one forgets how Jay Leno acted during the last writer's strike. Like it's, interesting times. That's for sure. Also shout out to the one writer who was picketing Warner Bros. In Atlanta on her own. Did y'all see that?
Oh my God, I haven't seen that. That's amazing.
I don't remember her but like she posted a photo that she was like the only one outside Warner Bros. In Atlanta. And I guess there are more people that are planning on coming in the coming days or something. But she was like, it's just me. It's just me. People were honking for her and the police came and they were like, you're allowed. Like, just let us know if anyone's bothering you since you're by yourself out here. Like, I guess people were very supportive of her. And I was like, that's nice. That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wish I had her ad so we could plug it. But anything else we want to say on that before we?
That was my very glossed over big picture explainer of the facts as I understand them. There's a lot more nuance to what the WGA is asking for versus what the studios have countered with. All of that is available on the WGA East and WGA West socials, and it's all been made available to the public. So I would highly recommend educating yourself further if you want to become involved. And like I said, I'll post all of those links that I mentioned.
Beautiful. And you'll share the link. Oh my God, I can't speak tonight. You'll share the link to your playlist that you used on your road trip as well.
Yeah, I will.
Links coming from Marissa after the show tonight, folks.
Lots of links.
Okay. Shall we jump into Shadow and Bone, which is our topic of the episode?
Let's do it.
We'll try.
I have no idea what's in store for us now.
Neither do I, especially because my brain and my mouth have not been connected this entire time. We'll see where this goes. As always, if you have not watched Shadow and Bone, you don't need to enjoy our conversation about it because there's a lot that we want to talk about with this show that are both within the series, but also some things happening with the show that are bigger than just one show and relate actually to the writer's strike and relate to streaming shows and a lot of things that we've talked about how shows need room to breathe and grow and how fan communities are treated. So a lot of interesting conversation happening right now with Shadow and Bone in the middle of it. We'll start with my history with this show, which is actually kind of interesting. There's a huge, ginormous fan community with like sub fan communities within it online around Shadow and Bone. And I kind of stumbled into it. It is a book series. There's actually multiple book series. There's Shadow and Bone, there's Six of Crows trilogy, and there's another one as well that like, this is how far extended out of the fandom I am. I don't even remember right now the name of the other series of books that go into this. And there's communities around each of those series. There's community that surrounds all of it called the Grisha-verse. And then there's the Netflix show and the fans of the Netflix show, which is kind of where I came into it. I found out about this through Netflix and then kind of went back to TikTok and found the fans and figured out what was going on. But I watched this show when it came out initially with season 1. I enjoyed it. I had a good time with it. I was like, oh, this is like a nice time. It kind of reminds me of some of the 2010 stories. I liked like the Hunger Games, Divergent, it's of the same era of female protagonist, dystopian magical world kind of thing. So if you're into that kind of show literature, you'll love Shadow and Bone. And then season 2 came out. Season 2 just came out very recently. And I fell in love with season 2. I saw what they were trying to do and I learned what was happening with these characters specifically and the book series that they're from, and the PR campaign for this show has been phenomenal. And I just jumped right into the deep end and was like, all right, these little crows have my heart. I'm going full speed ahead supporting them and jumping into this community. And it's been so much fun. It's been so much fun learning about the Six of Crows, learning about the Grishaverse, and kind of watching all their marketing. I've posted a lot of videos on TikTok breaking down why their marketing and PR has been so good and so different from other Netflix properties that we've seen. And now we're kind of in a holding pattern, and this is where some of the politics of the show kind of come into play. There is a spin-off for Six of Crows that has already been written, that the cast has already seen pieces of, if not the whole thing, and it has not been greenlit by Netflix. And similarly, there's a campaign to get season 3 of Shadow and Bone, but it has not been announced that it's been renewed yet. So there's a huge campaign, like every day for the past 2 weeks. Shadow and Bone season 3 has been trending worldwide on Twitter. Like the fans are all over this. Rolling Stone did an article about the fans trying to save this show and how it relates to Netflix canceling shows for seemingly no reason, even if they're popular, which is kind of bizarre. And then there was something else with this that's really interesting that I'm forgetting, but it's going to come back to me. People are thinking that it's going to be announced in June during Pride Month, during Netflix Geeked Week, that maybe they are renewing it. Oh, and The Witcher has a spin-off show that was just announced, and it's causing a ton of controversy because the synopsis for The Witcher spin-off is the same synopsis as Six of Crows. It's 6 thieves and people from, the barrel rats, as they call them in Six of Crows, but different in the Witcher universe, that come together for an art heist, which is the exact same. It's like the exact same as how they are setting up the Six of Crows show. So people are thinking that because of that synopsis and because they're taking the director from Shadow and Bone to do that, they're going to let this franchise die and put it all into The Witcher. So there's a lot of controversy happening right now. If you like following this kind of thing, this is a great universe to follow for the drama alone. But the story is also good and fun. And that's where this show finds us tonight, in the heat of controversy and fans trying to save it. And 2 seasons of a show that kind of meshed a lot of good intent together, some landing and some not. And I know we had a lot of opinions on what worked and what didn't in this show. Marissa definitely has a lot to say about the costuming in this show. Alexis, I think, has a lot to say about the goat of it all with Milo. We'll see. There's a lot to dive into. But maybe let's start, like, Alexis and Marissa. Maybe Marissa, we'll start with you. What was your impression of this show on like a high level when you were watching the first 5 episodes?
I was not excited about watching it, but I loved Liz, so I was gonna watch it. And I really was lost and confused for a very long time. But once I got in, I was in. So I think on a high level, my reaction is I kind of wish I had the context from the books going in, because I had a lot of questions. And like Liz said, I was very confused by the aesthetic. And I think if I had the background from the books, I would have been able to accept a lot of this sort of lore and broader circumstances a lot quicker. But once it got me, it got me. It just took a second to get me.
I definitely, the first time I watched season 1 back in the day, I was very confused in the first 3 episodes, especially. As someone who is now like fully on the Kaz Brecker train, I could not understand why we kept watching these guys. I was like, what? I want to see Alina and Mal. Why do we keep cutting to these guys? And now I watch the show and I'm like, screw Alina and Mal. All I want to watch is the Crows. Like, I'm here for these guys. So I think there's a lot about the show in the lore and how they're kind of shoved all the characters in our faces that make it hard to catch up on what you're supposed to be focused on. Like, they really split you and context switch you in a way that doesn't always work. Alexis, where do you come in on your impression of this show?
Well, first I want to say that I went in with some huge misconceptions about what I was about to watch. I don't know where the confusion occurred, but somehow in my brain, because I know you've talked about the show before, Liz, and I know when you discussed it, I was like, oh yeah, those sound like tropes I like. I may watch this show. But I think I conflated in this show with that, what's the Marvel show that Sly really likes?
Oh, Cloak and Dagger?
Yes, I
Yeah.
combined those two
Not the
things.
same.
So I went in thinking this was going to be like a CW style, like spy show. And then 5 minutes into it was like, the fuck have I gotten into? I don't know any of these words. This is dystopian, which is just like a genre I have never really been into. I think I was a little old when that became like a widespread kind of theme. And I watch media basically because I want to see like interesting people do things really well. And dystopian is like sad to me. So it's just not my favorite either one. So I was like, oh, it's dystopian and it's like this and like I don't know any of these words, and also not CW. Like about 10 minutes in, I was like, this is far more like HBO than the CW I was envisioning. Like people are getting fucking tortured. What is happening? But I will say high level, I don't know that I will continue the show because everyone keeps telling me like season 2 is so different. And the ideal show for Alexis is a 23 season series that's just episodes 1 through 5.
Yeah.
But for 23 episodes.
Yeah. There are definitely moments in season 2, and specifically with these guys. Take Alina and Mal out of it. Take this whole thing with the fold. Oh, sorry, I just hit my mic. Take the whole thing with the fold completely out of it and just focus on the heist. Like every episode, they're going on a heist. That's the whole thing about season 2. They always are like joining a circus or stealing a map or like that's fun. And it's very gay. And like that's where I think you would enjoy the show. But there's a lot that happens that also was not nice about season 2 that I think you would absolutely hate.
I think what's fascinating to me, and now I feel like I need to rewatch them, like the episodes that we watched, because I understand that like the piece, the intended connection piece was the heist. But the piece that Alexis actually connected to was the heroine villain love story thing that was happening. So if I'm under the impression that does not continue through season 2, which means Alexis will not continue through season 2. But if it does,
based on some promotional materials I've seen, I don't know that we could say that as a firm statement.
Awesome. Okay, great.
This might be the first episode in a while where Liz walks you through, or someone on the screen walks you through the plot points of the future episodes and spoils what happens for you so that I can indulge you in some of what might be to come if you would like. Let's zoom out and I'm so excited to talk through some of this. And I think we need to spend some time tonight going through the notes. I have a conversation point outlined for this because there are things in each of your notes about Shadow and Bone that I think connect to so much of what we've talked about on the show and the points that each of you fixated on. So we'll come back to the Alexander of it all and the Black Heretic of it all. But let's talk about what we want to toast to from this show. I'm going to toast with my Diet Coke tonight. And I'm on the big cans. I was having these like little itty bitty cans that made my hands look huge a few episodes ago, and I'm on the properly sized can of Coke for once. I'd like to put that on the record so you understand my hand's not huge. I just had tiny cans of Coke in previous episodes. Marissa, what are you toasting with this evening?
The only beverage I have to show is my water bottle. I'm woefully single beverage tonight.
Happens. It happens. It's okay. We'll accept. Bye, Bunky. Alexis, what are you toasting with?
I have a box of beverages.
Thank you. She's making up for us.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a sweet tea.
Beautiful. I love it. Okay, I'll start with a toast, which I kind of just alluded to. I'm toasting to my predictions for the beats of the show that each of you would love and hate being 100% spot on. That is rare. But reading your notes, I realized that I know you better than I thought I did. Cheers.
Cheers.
Marissa?
Similar vein, I am toasting to Liz and I being so married because watching this show, I immediately 100% understood why Liz is obsessed with it. It didn't connect to me in the same ways, but I got it. I mean, I was like, this is Liz. I saw you. This show made me see you.
I love being seen. I'll take it. Cheers.
Cheers.
And Alexis, what are you toasting to this evening?
I accidentally pulled up a list of academic references trying to get to my toast instead of my toast. But I think what I was toasting to was women who look like they're in the League of Assassins. TM, yes. Because I am a huge fan of one Nisa Al Ghul, and this had some Nisa Al Ghul energy.
Absolutely. Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah, Inej is a baddie. One thing that happens in season 2 that I think is really cool is they actually, I would say like they must have upped the budget for the tech that they used to film it. They brought in a slow-mo camera, and in the fight scenes, they have these, for everybody, they have these incredible slow-mo moments of the characters being baddies. And some of the sequences we get with Inej, her choreography, I feel like, is leveled up in season 2. I don't know how. Alexis, I would want you to watch it just to tell me if it actually is leveled up or just filmed differently. But she's even better. It's even better. Yeah, which is exciting. Okay, roses and thorns. I'll start. My rose and thorn is the same.
This is why we're married.
It is Kaz Brecker. It is who both Alexis and Marissa have identified very clearly. Draco Malfoy coded morally gray characters. I don't know what else there is to say. It's a rose. It's a thorn. I feel very attacked right now, but also I get it. I think him and Inej, one of my favorite ships from TV, maybe ever. Right there with Jesper and Wyland in season 2. And Nina and Matthias, obviously. So yeah, Kaz Brecker, my rose, my thorn. There he is. There he is. That's it. That's all I gotta say about that. I'm just gonna leave it there. Marissa?
My rose is the fact that probably half of my notes are just me saying it's giving and then a reference to another like early 2010s YA novel. Like half of my notes are like, this is this moment from Hunger Games. This is this moment from Hunger Games. Oh, now it's Divergent. Like I was having a great time pulling references left and right. And my thorn is that there is no consistent period historical dress, and yet it's still slightly accurate historical dress, costume by costume. Like there will be one person that's like fully 1910s and then another that's fully 1860s. And like, I have a lot to say, but I can save that for later.
Well, we'll come back to this point because it's one of the big things about this show that I think is so interesting. Alexis, give us your rose and thorn.
My rose was counterfeit coins. I loved that scene. I think that was an episode we were supposed to watch. I got a little there for a while. Okay, so loved counterfeit coins. I loved the bang bang of the counterfeit coins. I love when somebody like has a moment to explain like knowledge in that kind of like sassy way. So I really appreciated that. And my thorn was that I feel like dystopian worlds, especially from the early 2010s, have this tendency to like create a like post the time we're in now universe where racism still exists, but like it is still dealt with poorly. And I feel like that's a missed opportunity and kind of, I don't know, it's just like a downer, to be honest with you. So that was my thorn.
It's super annoying how they handle it in the show, and they never really apologize for it. And then in season 2, you can tell they try and come back to it a little bit and then just fail miserably. Yeah. Annoying is an understatement for sure. I love just specifically, Marissa, the way that you wrote your points. I don't think your verbal explanation of your rose and thorn really did justice to how you wrote these, which is all capital letters. Why are there 95 periods of historical dress? Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. Maybe we'll come back to that in a minute, but let's zoom in on some of the other beats of the show that I thought we would all bond over, and it seems like we did bond over it. So I'll share one of the beats and tell you where I was coming from with it, and then you can each speak to it, and maybe we'll show some of the notes that we wrote that kind of back up where we're coming into this conversation from. The first is the art heist and the counterfeit coins. It's, to me, when I was rewatching for myself and figuring out what to ask y'all to watch, I was like, it's so Alexis coded that there is a heist in this show and the counterfeit coins, and the counterfeit coin comes back later in the episode, and it's just, I love it. I love it. I love the mischief of the crows, and I love how they all shine around it in a different way. Like, you have like the ringleader, you have the person that can like take out the guys in your way, you have the kind of witty one that, you know, gets out of any sticky situation. Like the way that they do the tropes of it all, I think make it more fun to watch than if if we had bland characters trying to do the heist and the counterfeit coins, I wouldn't enjoy. But because everyone is foolish all of the time and whimsical, it's fun to sit into. So I loved Alexis's notes about this. Alexis, when you were watching it for the first time, walk me through like what your reaction was to it. Did you expect those elements in the show?
I knew there was a heist coming, because I think you had noted somewhere that there was like a heist. So I knew there was a heist coming. I think the heist that you noted was not necessarily the counterfeit coin bit in the first episode. But I was like, okay, we're in like this like gambling gaming situation. Like, I thought somebody was maybe going to count cards, and then the counterfeit coin bit happened, and I like squealed. And I love, one of my favorite things about writing in media is when we get like a circle back moment, like we get a call back. So when the counterfeit coin came back later in the episode, I was like, yes, like they, you know, that was a fist pump moment for me. But I will say there's a moment, I think it's right after that, where I remember nobody's name.
Okay.
Malfoy recognizes without looking behind him that League of Assassins bestie is like back there, and I was like, oh my god, like that was another really exciting moment for me, because I feel like even though that's not technically a heist, that is a very like heist thief like trope that I really appreciate.
So one of my favorite headcanons, you may have seen this in my notes, but there's this very popular headcanon in the Six of Crows community, which is that Kaz actually never knows when Inej is behind him. He just always says, hello, Inej, like every few minutes, and he's alone in case she's there.
Like, the thing is, for me, you know, you said, Liz, you know, like I like being seen, or something that like earlier in the episode, and I have always found that there's a certain intimacy to the idea that like you could know someone well enough to know them in silence, like to know like the way that the air shifts around like their movement, right? So like, as much as I love the joke that this man is just like, hello, are you there? I'm going to stick with like, he knows her well enough to know how the air moves around her.
Yeah. And that is something that we see throughout the entire series, is that he's regularly knows exactly where she is. And when she is not, also, we see him in the moments when he knows that she's not there and she should be. And it's very interesting. Yeah. So good. So good. Marissa, where do you come in on the heist of it all and the counterfeit coins and the mischief of the crows? Not your fave.
Oh, I gotta be real with you. I don't remember where the counterfeit coin even is. I enjoyed the heist in episode 5.
Yeah, there's
the unsuccessful. Well, I guess it ended up ultimately being successful, but no, I've just been smiling and nodding the whole time. I have no idea what the counterfeit coin is.
In episode 1, we meet Jesper.
Yes.
In the club, and he shoots a coin. He shoots a coin, and he's like, this currency you should not be able to shoot through, but I did, so it's a fake coin. And then, no, there's a moment later in the episode when Kaz buys someone off, and they're going through the money, and Kaz accidentally had the coin that was shot in the bag. And he's like, wait, this is fake.
No.
It's okay. It's all good.
I watched that episode several days ago. I've lived
Okay.
many lives since then. Taylor Swift has announced an album
It's true.
since then.
Listen, it's true. Talk about the lives we've lived since Monday. I'm right there with you. It's all good.
I will say that there were some choice costumes in that scene, Marissa, so you may just have been distracted.
Probably was.
By the costuming that was happening.
That is a perfect segue. Let's talk about the costuming of this show. Marissa, I'm going to throw the floor over to you immediately before I tell you my take on it all.
I just don't understand. And I feel like if I had any sort of background on the books, it would potentially make a tiny bit of sense as to why we're like in Russia, but it's also London, but it's also New York, and it's the 60s, but it's also the 1910s, but it's also 1824. Like different sort of groups of people. I guess I understand the theory around this of like different groups of people are sort of dressed in different eras, but they're also dressed in like different like geographical locations. Like some of the heart whatever people are like dressed like they're in country western, like they're in a western movie, like they're saloon girls in a western movie. And then the like anti-Grisha people are like Viking-esque, like, and then there's magic, but then there's also guns, but then there's like Cold War posters. Like I spent too much time paying attention to the aesthetic and placing it in different historical eras rather than imagining it as a fantastical and or dystopian world that is removed from ours. I was spending too much time connecting to our world already rather than like a Game of Thrones where I can be like, I see the era you were going for, but clearly this is not based in reality.
Mm-hmm. I really think that the show in the intro that it did spent too much, which neither of you watched, which is fine.
I did. I watched all of your videos and I watched the intro. I just didn't absorb any of it.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. That's fair. That's a fair.
So it went into my ear. I don't know if it went into my brain.
I think that that intro should have spent more time going through this map. Like, you know, at the beginning of the Hunger Games when they're like, there are 12 districts. This is how they operate. We're going to District 12. And you're like, okay, I got it. There's 12 of them. Like it's sequential. The further you get to 12, the more the district is. Like I can get there. They really should have taken us through this map in that intro before they gave us the lore of the fold, etc. And then there's also an interesting point about how all these different places, I'm trying to find the right word to describe what I want to say here, but they are all based on different cities at different points of time. So your point about the fashion and the costuming not being like cohesive is also a reflection on like these areas being based on very different time periods and very different things happening. Like Ketterdam was supposed to be Amsterdam during the Depression and during like, you know, like fears over plagues and things like that. Like Shuhan's supposed to be Beijing or inspired by Beijing. So it's like the inspiration behind the world isn't cohesive. So like, that comes.
And I could tell that it was intentional because each like everything was specific enough that I was like, this has a clear reference point. This is intentional, but it was so incohesive to me that I just spent so much time thinking about it rather than clearly paying attention to the counterfeit coins.
No, it's very fair. It's very, and I find the Ketterdam scenes, like the city with these guys and the club, and then like you know, Ketterdam's supposed to be the place where like you know, you flee to Ketterdam. You can be anyone in Ketterdam. You can switch your identity in Ketterdam. So you get the most stark people in one scene. And it doesn't feel cohesive sometimes when you're watching it, which is supposed to be the point of the city, but also like you just feel how stark those differences are. Does that make sense? I think.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. With that said, I think the other thing that bugs me about the costuming in this show, which I said previously but Once Upon a Time, is that the clothing sometimes is too well steamed for me. Like Inej never has a wrinkle in her outfits, and yet she's like flipping and like climbing up things and like laying down low. I'm like, your outfit should be like filthy by the time you come back, but it's like pristine. I'm like, mess it up a little bit. Same with Kaz. His hair is very inconsistent from shot to shot for me. At least with Just where they make the point to like let us know he's pretty vain. So like I can justify him always kind of having it together. But yeah, I don't like shows that keep everyone looking the same level of tidy all the time.
Yeah, that is the sort of Netflix. Alexis is totally right. Netflix sort of like fantasy dystopian-esque series have a very sort of halfway point between CW and HBO. And I think the pristine aesthetic leans more CW, whereas HBO is not afraid of the dirt.
Now, the makeup on this show is not afraid of the dirt because those close-ups of Mal, his face is grimy. Oh man, that actor probably needed a few good trips to the spa when they were finished wrapping to get all that caked out of his skin. This is a very astute point from JJ. The inspiration's based on the role in the story, like the Heartrender costumes, all coming from the same place in the storytelling character archetype. They play in that perspective time. Yeah, that too. That too.
Yeah, I think my issue, like I agree with JJ and I agree with your point, Liz, that like we're supposed to be representing certain cities at like the height of their disorganization, right? I think my issue was that seemed to be executed really well for certain countries and not for others. Like there was a clear Slavic undertone that I understood. But then when we're looking at like cities, the city I assumed was to be based on Beijing, even though Beijing has a long and historic breadth of cultural wear that represents that city at different times, the costuming worn by people of those cities was still very Western, like it was still very Slavic. So that kind of threw me off a little bit because I'm like, I know like the coloring of what you're wearing is different, but like this is not actually a reference to anything that would have been worn in Beijing ever. So I thought that was odd. And then when we got to the castle, all of that clothing was just like the same outfit in different colors, which was kind of disconcerting when we had all of these different styles previously. And I think going to your point, Liz, about like sometimes things are too pristine. It also seems like there was like a different quality level that wasn't connected to like the amount of money the character would have had. Like there are some like party city belt buckle grommet things happening on my dark bestie on his cloak that like real strange. And then, you know, your Malfoy bestie is in like 4 Henleys under like a bespoke vest and like a jacket. And the quality of that feels very high. And the quality of like my dark friends feels very like party city. That was a little off to me too.
Those are very, very good points. And it's also interesting. Here's a spoiler if you want a spoiler. You're talking about Alexander, right? And it's like, this is a man that's been alive for hundreds of years.
Alexander.
Like, I think he would have figured out the best clothing by now. Like, I feel like he would have stolen it. He would have waited for someone to die and then ransacked the wardrobe. He would have recreated it. He would have like I really think if he's gonna be General Kerrigan and be like, you know, he constantly has to reinvent his character. Like I don't buy that he doesn't have a wardrobe of costume changes hidden somewhere. They like, oh, but I need to be this person. I shall pop that.
He needs the Carlisle Cullen treatment.
Yes.
And I think especially because they ask us to pay attention to that costuming, right? Like there's that ongoing commentary, one of my favorite bits of what we watched, to be honest, where she's like her decision to wear black over blue. Like that's a thing that they ask us to pay attention to, right? And like while that has a deeper story meaning, right? Like it is still on the surface going to make us to pay more attention to what he's wearing because we're tracking her very intentional color journey, which was also the reason it stood out that everybody had the same embroidery but like just 4 different colors of peacoat.
Yep. 100%. 100%. Okay, let's pause the fashion conversation there because I feel like we could stay in this lane forever. Let's talk about the characters more. Let's talk about how you both called me out perfectly with 100% accuracy about Kaz Brecker. And I think you knew going into this show that I was emotionally attached to this character. No?
Oh, I had heard a lot about this character. I could not identify them visually or by any character traits. I just knew that Liz had screamed a lot about them. But the second I saw Kaz, I was like, well, there it is. That's it. We're done. Thank you. Moving on.
We've discovered the reason why we're being forced to watch this show. Alexis and Marissa, you both have incredible notes for the introduction to Kaz Brecker in episode 1 that I would love for you to share with the class. Alexis, you have yours first in the list here, and I actually have it highlighted in the notes if you would like to read your notes aloud. Or you can edit them, whatever you would like. But would you like to
I'll
share
read them all up. I was just trying to find them. Yeah. I will start by saying that I did not know. And I saw this character, but I had this moment where I was like, does Liz realize that is why she likes this character? Because people are always having to tell me, like, Alexis, do you recognize that your dark bestie looks like every other character you've ever liked? So I did write these notes kind of with that hint in mind, okay? But I wrote, this man has gay Malfoy energy. Tell me I'm wrong. You can't. Henceforth, he will be known as gay Malfoy.
To your point about not knowing, I did not know in my first watch that that's why I liked Kaz. But I also was struggling in the first time I watched the show. I couldn't understand why we were caring about these characters. So I didn't understand the Six of Crows story. Like, so once it all came together in my mind and I rewatched it with the intent of figuring this storyline out that I'd previously been ignoring, right into the deep end. Immediately saw Kaz Brecker and was like, that's my character.
Love that for you.
That's it.
Right.
Yeah. Marissa, would you like to share with the class?
Oh, in a very similar vein, I wrote, oh, who's this Malfoy? And then a little bit later, yeah, Mr. Sinister with the cane vibe makes complete sense for Liz.
Called me out with incredible accuracy. I'm trying to find my note from the first time he was on my screen. See, the problem with when I was rewatching this time was I actually was really fixated on Jesper because I previously had been so fixated on Kaz that I forgot how funny Jesper is. So when I was rewatching and I was sick and I just wanted a comfort show, I was really leaning into how funny Jesper is. And my notes just say all the time over and over and over and over again, Jesper, I love you. Jesper, I love you. Jesper, I love you. And then I have later on, I love Jesper's separate entry. Like I was really all over it. Jesper being the first crow we meet is so slay. Freddie Carter is so slay, who's the actor that plays Kaz. So yeah, I do like that we all understood pretty off the top that this was the reason why we were watching this show. I wonder, like, of the characters that you met in the first 5 episodes, did anyone stand out to you as like, oh, this is a trope or a person or a moment that like we have spoken about in the past? Because there is one in Alexis's notes, and you said this earlier in the show, that stood out for you that I did not think you were going to go so deep in. But now that you've said the reason why, I'm like, oh, that's why Alexis enjoyed Alexander. Okay, I can get behind it.
Listen, I am, to answer your question, no, but mainly because I'm not currently trusting my memory about which aspects of this show we have talked about in the past, because I also thought we were talking about Sly's show. So
very valid, very valid. Yep.
But I will say, I was watching a commentary, I don't know, early last year on like media and story writing. And somebody in that commentary said, which like felt brilliant to me, but really isn't that brilliant when you think about it, that we typically put the villain or the anti-hero in such a place in relation to the main female character. The main female character is allowed more autonomy, right? So like when they are with the hero or they are telling the hero's story, their story becomes what they did for the hero, which I think is very true in this. I think when we talk about whatever main female character bestie's name is, and the guy everyone seems to want her with now, like when she tells that story, she is talking about like what she gave up for him, like for his journey, right? And so we're not actually getting to learn a lot about like who she is or see her come into her own. And I think when she is paired with Alexander, right, we get to see all of those things, which makes that relationship more appealing, even though you know.
That's so interesting. Yeah. Marissa, what do you think on that?
I spent most of my time watching this show and Alina and Mal's interactions in particular, writing down this is Katniss and Gale just forever. But like, I couldn't figure out if that was a positive or a negative.
Mhm.
Like, I couldn't figure out if it was what we wanted Katniss and Gale to be, or if it is what Katniss and Gale end up actually being. And like how Alexander fits as like somewhere between a Peeta and a Haymitch. And like how I feel about that. And I really haven't come to a resolution. But I
You
was
also
not
haven't ended the show in a place where I think you could find a resolution.
No.
If that helps.
No, but I was not surprised by any of it. I did see it coming from both sides. So I don't know.
One thing about the Alina Mal storyline is like it did come out in the same era, right, as Hunger Games, Divergent, etc. So you can tell that they were like copy and paste. People love like young lovers fighting through dystopian heroics. Like it's that whole thing. And I historically have not been a Mal truther. I've been like, I could take or leave Mal. Like, well, whatever. And for some reason on this rewatch, I was like kind of getting some sympathy for him that I previously did not have. So I think it maybe takes 6 watches of the show to be like, Mal maybe deserves rights.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if it's just like the way the character is, or if it's just if he is just sort of obsessed with her. And how much Gale are we giving?
So there is something that happens in season 2. And this is really what changes the game. Mal's entire reason for being in the show comes to light in season 2. And because of that, when you rewatch season 1, you see just how many Easter eggs they planted to get you to that point. And it forces you to rewatch his entire plot with a different lens. That is so manipulative of them to do to us, because they obviously wrote season 1 knowing that's where he was going in season 2. Would you like to be spoiled, or would you like to?
Yes, spoil, because I have a theory and
Okay,
I want to know if my theory is right.
Speak your theory. Speak your theory.
I don't know why I feel this way, but you know how there's that whole deal about like Alexander, when he touches her wrist, like he amplifies her powers or whatever. I feel like that's a similar vein with Mal, and like him being like, I could always hear the sound of your light or whatever.
Alexis, how do you feel on that?
I mean, I don't think it's not, how do I put this? I think Marissa's pattern recognition when it comes to what is happening in media is like unparalleled. I don't like that idea. I like the idea that is like, I have spent all of these years on this planet and I now have you and we are powerful together and I want to burn the world down with you. I really don't care if the world is burning to the ground as long as we are burning it down to the ground together. I like that much more than like, woe is me, I didn't get your letters. Here's a picture of a stag. Like
Yes,
Right.
my pattern recognition is good. but I did not pay attention to this show, Alexis. So I could be way off base.
Okay. This is official spoilers for Shadow and Bone season 2. So just if you're watching and you don't want it, head out of here for the next 10 minutes, then pop back. Okay. And our replayers can like skip forward. Okay. So do we remember what Mal's role in the army is? It's okay if you don't. I don't know what that sign was. Sorry. I don't know what you just said. Try again.
I thought he was like a tracker. Is that not
correct? Correct.
Oh yeah. That's what
He's a tracker, right? So they have all these trackers in this army, and for some reason, Mal gets picked to go through the fold, right? Like he's the best of the trackers, and he's like, "I'm gonna find." Later in the show, he's like, "I'm gonna find this stag, this mythical thing, because she needs it, and I'm gonna be the one to find it." And I'm not remembering how much you saw of that. Did you see any of that in the episodes that you watched? You did. So he finds the stag that no one else in all of time has been able to find. He finds it. And it's like, are people even going to believe him that he found the stag? He can't take a photo of it. He doesn't have a camera. Like, that's not a thing that he has. So he's like, no, I found it. I know where it is, whatever, with incredible accuracy. So he goes back to the castle. It's like, found the stag. You saw all that. And so we met Alexander's mother, Bagra, and she finds out that Mal found the stag. Now there's 3 amplifiers. So the way that season 1 progresses is Alexander wants the stag, Alina wants the stag. They kind of get to it at the same time, with Mal helping Alina get back to it. And then the stag is like, and then has to choose like what's going to happen to the amplification. It's like a whole thing, right? And season 1 ends with Alina having the power of the stag. So it's 1 amplifier that's like officially claimed of the mythical 3. And then season 2, Alina's like, I need to find the other ones and absorb them to get rid of this fold thing, because I couldn't just do it with 1. So the first plot of season 2 is they're going to go find the sea whip. And Mal looks at a map and is like, it's right here. Like, okay. They're on a boat. It's the whole thing. We meet a bunch of characters. They go and they find, like, he literally points at the map and says, I know for sure the sea whip is here. They go there. They find the mythical sea whip that no one's ever found. It's a very anticlimactic scene where they kill the sea whip, and then she absorbs its powers. It's like, that felt very easy to the stakes of the story when it shouldn't have been. And then they're like, okay, we need to find the 3rd one. And they go back to Bagra. And they're like, we need the 3rd amplifier. And Bagra's like, how'd you find the sea whip? And Alina's like, Mal found the sea whip. Bagra's like, and you found the stag too? And he's like, I did. And she's like, how'd you do it? And he's like, I can hear it. Because...
What am I saying?
Mal is the 3rd amplifier. And the reason why he always could find Alina when they were kids is because he's got the genetic thing, because we find out he's actually a relation to Bagra and Alexander. He's a descendant of this bloodline, and he is the Firebird. So the stakes of season 2 are Mal needs to die.
Wow. That just wrapped a lot up for me. That's great. Wow.
Alexis is not impressed.
He's gonna die, Alexis.
I hate goodness. That sounds like a bad thing to say, but I don't think there's like ever been a character in media. Like, I am historically not a Superman girly, because Superman is traditionally, not always, I have read comics, but traditionally portrayed as like the Boy Scout, like goody two shoes. It's not interesting. Like, I don't like goodness. Like, give me something else.
No, that's really fair. And to me, when we were watching season 2, and this was all revealed, because I didn't see it coming until we were in the scene with Bagra and she's like breaking it down. I was like, oh, fuck, Mal's the Firebird. Shit. Like, it all makes sense. And all this shit in season 1 about the True North and the hearing. Like, he could, like, hear where things were. I'm like, oh, like, it was all set up for us. Like, none of this was accidental. I get it now. But I was pissed. I was like, no. And it read so Harry Potter to me. Harry Potter finding out he's a Horcrux. I was like, damn it, Mal. Are you serious? So then,
I forgot one of my other YA connections is Bagra and Alina's training is Harry and Snape doing occlumency. I'm sorry, I just had to sneak that one in.
So the end of season 2 is entirely Harry Potter.
Oh.
You have the Bagra sacrifice, which is Snape, to hold off Alexander. You have Mal dying and being brought back to life. So he is now no longer the Firebird.
Okay. That's very Forks the Phoenix.
Right. Yeah, they get rid of the fold. It's gone.
In season 2?
Correct. Because
seems really early.
The way that season 2 ends is, amongst other things that happen, people who were previously against the Grisha, all the magic people, right? Because there's a lot of bias and stereotyping in this world still. Basically, the end of season 2 is the politics are still there and actually more prevalent because they got rid of the fold. There's people that want the magical people dead. They're like, no, like, can't have that. Like, the prejudice still exists. Like, Alina's got all this power now, and like, can she control it? So it's kind of like, okay, so next season, the stakes are war. Okay.
I will say that I think it was in your notes, Liz, there's a comment about like, oh, True North, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, True North? Like, I'm choosing Black from now on over True North every time. Like, it's just who I am as a person.
See, my notes are so coded by me connecting to that season 2 story arcs, maybe being like, oh, True North. But I didn't want to write all the spoilers for season 2 in my notes. So really the end of those thoughts are always because of that.
And I know I'm getting from your tone of voice that they are intending that relationship between the two of them to be romantic. I am trying to say or idyllic in its romance, right? And I'm trying to say that, like, give me Guy grabbing her wrist to amplify her power over this True North stag Patronus shenanigans any day.
Let's switch gears and let's talk about Alexander, because I love talking about Ben Barnes in this role. I think that he's hysterical at worst and amazing, incredible, lovely at best. So I want to dive in about the Black Heretic, General Kerrigan Alexander. Alexis, you're choosing the I prefer to wear black line of this show. So talk me through
10 out of 10.
Talk me through your impression of this character and storyline.
I don't necessarily know that like I have an interpretation of the character that I can like quantify or qualify. I knew from the beginning like that this guy was the villain, right? Like he just kind of gives off like villain energy. So I knew we were going down, but like I didn't give a shit because I liked her coming into a certain amount of like making decisions on her own to a certain extent, right? I think I, as a person, have always kind of struggled to come into my power, right? So like as to see a character be like, no, like this is my power, like I am choosing this, I thought was great. I also just really liked their chemistry. I didn't feel as much chemistry between her and Mal. And I will say I cheated and I got like, I don't know, 10 minutes into episode 6 and was like, they're gonna break my heart with this plot line because they're gonna do like what normal people want them to do, and like that's not the Alexis train. So I tried to YouTube like the rest of their story. That's when we got to weird antler collarbones that I wasn't here for. But after that YouTube compilation was just a series of interviews of the two actors. So Alexander's actor Alexander and main female character Besties actor, and they also just have great like personal chemistry. So I'm like, that is a 10 out of 10 for me.
Did you see the photo that was posted on Instagram yesterday of those two? It got cross-posted to the main Netflix Instagram account. It's that good.
It's like a Fox of Spain situation. I think the worst part of the 911 from Fox to ABC pipeline for me is going to be losing the 911 Spain shenanigans.
On here, I'm gonna show you this. Look at this picture that was cross-posted. It was that good. This cast has incredible chemistry. It's part of the reason why the fan community is so in love with them. Look at these two. It's there. And this is Ben Barnes, who's the guy, obviously. Like, I know he's the darkling, but this photo is pure sunshine.
I will also say, like, I'm picky about fight choreography, and I'm picky about behind the scenes fight choreography. Like, I don't always feel like that does what it's intended to do. And there was a behind the scenes clip of the two of them during choreography that looked like
I know the exact
a choke, and he like perfectly like spins her into this, and I was like, done. See you in 3 to 5 business weeks while I try to get over that rabbit hole we just went down.
No, you're spot on. Ben Barnes is like chemistry king. He brought it. And the scene, I think we had the same reaction, Alexis, to the scene when he and Mal meet. Mal arrives at Little Palace and he's like, I found the stag. And like, you kind of see the two guys like,
oh God.
And he's like, tell me what her favorite flower is, and then pulls it out in the next scene.
And like, he is the one with the power in that moment, right? That he knows what this chessboard looks like and that Mal really doesn't. And like, I didn't care. Like, I was like, you use that.
Marissa, while we kind of come to terms on our side of the screen, what was your impression of Ben Barnes in this?
Oh, almost every note I wrote about him, there were several like medium shots that were just like sort of him centered in frame. And every time we got one of those shots, my notes looked like that's Sirius Black, that is. It was a lot of Sirius Black. All of my love and support to Alexis was not Team Alina and Alexander. I think she looks like a child and he looks like a grown man.
Valid, but I didn't care.
I like was very confused as to what age she was intended to be. And I think she's supposed to be older than I assumed she was. Which was a bit of a surprise for me. I did see it coming. I just didn't see it coming as quickly as it did. So I don't have a lot of thoughts about it. I greatly enjoyed the evil reveal. I think that was exciting and made a lot of sense.
Evil or
I don't know.
I think this is
Alexis.
Oh my God. So this is one of the things about this show that we've had many conversations about in our house, right? Because you kind of initially, before you understand the backstory of the Black Heretic, like, and you get the full 9 yards of what this guy has done. He's sympathetic for 5 minutes. For 5 minutes, he's the most sympathetic villain you've ever seen in your life. And then you realize he believes that Grisha should rule the world out. And you're like, okay, we cannot support the values of this guy at all. But for 5 minutes, it's like, General Kerrigan. Okay. And you're like, no. One thing about this character, as someone that's watched the show too many times that I think is interesting is I don't particularly think if take the performance out of it entirely and ignore the books entirely and just look at the show. I don't think there is much special to this character. I think what makes the character special is what Ben Barnes put into it and the way that he decided to bring the poise of Alexander and the like I kept writing things like the Ben Barnes School of Giving Face in my notes because like the way that he like really overacts certain moments because it's not Ben Barnes overacting, it's Alexander masking the evilness and trying to overact as this like kind of poised general guy who's had to reinvent himself a million times. Like it's really interesting the depth that Ben Barnes committed to giving him because he also read the books and in season 2 he made a lot of recommendations to the script of lines from the book that he really wanted to say and the way that he wanted the story to kind of like be grounded a little bit differently than season 1. But I kind of stand by, I don't think the character is as interesting as Ben Barnes is in this role. And I don't know if there's anyone else that could have come into the role and given that life to Alexander the way that he did. Because I think if you're not into Ben Barnes, he can be a bit of a boring villain.
Yeah.
There's
just not a lot of there. But also, like, I don't care. I find him greatly entertaining. I really enjoy the character. I don't support his actions, Alexis, but I had a lot of fun watching him.
So in the next act of the show, like once you finally get through the sludge of figuring out that Alexander is evil, and once you get there, it's so fun to watch Ben Barnes shift through the different versions of this guy, right? Like with his mother, there's no secrets and he's performed completely differently than when some people know he's the Black Heretic versus when he's trying to reveal he's the Black Heretic to the first time to people versus the people that think he's just this new guy with power, right? Like it's really, you can kind of pull apart like same, like to me, it's like a very minute version of how Michelle Yeoh had to keep track of all the different versions of Evelyn and Everything Everywhere all at once and be like, in this version, it's this line of context. In this version, it's this line of context. You can see Ben Barnes doing that with this character and like, this person knows that much. This person figured out that much. It's interesting. And go ahead. No, I was going to say season 2 only kind of explodes on that point even more.
I feel like my statement was going to take us to a place that maybe we cannot go. So I will just
save it for after the show.
Uh-huh.
Love it. I love it. Okay. Well, I'm glad that we're aligned on how we feel about Ben Barnes in this show. And regularly when I watch this show, I rarely refer to this guy as the character's name. It is Ben Barnes to me. It's the Ben Barnes show. Okay, let's talk about kind of how streamers keep canceling shit. This is one of the most watched shows in the world. It's still ranking on the Nielsen top 10 list. Like right now, it's like in no particular order. I think the top 10 stream shows right now on any platform are like Ted Lasso, Beef. I just had the image of it. It was like going around Twitter. But anyway, Shadow and Bone is like number 6 on the list on top of like all these shows that are airing right now that are like immensely popular. Succession's like number 1 on that list because it's out right now. So it's really interesting to hear conversations around like, you know, like, do you cancel the show because it's like a niche audience that's watching it, because it's like a younger audience that's watching it, because it's not necessarily a mainstream show. And then you have shows like, you know, Love is Blind that are really problematic, and horror stories coming from the people that are involved in it that are getting renewed left, right, and center. I just think it's like, I'm feeling like we're in a moment of watching streaming culture shift really drastically because of the writer's strike, because of the fury from the viewers. Like, remember when like Netflix first came onto the scene and you could tell we were in a moment of like, oh, like this is really going to change how we watch TV. I feel like we're in another one of those moments where like there's just so much friction. Yeah, Warrior Nun is a great example, like, I don't know. I would just love to hear from you too, what you think about shows getting canceled and like the ambiguity that like we as viewers get into the why these decisions are made. And yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the considerations of the writer's strike. It's one of the things that they're asking for, is more context and access to information, especially from the perspective of showrunners, of like how your show is doing. Like there's not even metrics available as to like how much you're being viewed, in what countries, at what times, how many people are rewatching. Like the ambiguity behind the metrics of streaming viewership, I think both affects the streamer's relationship to the viewers as much as it does the streamer's relationship to the creatives, because there is like this breakdown in communication of like you used to be able to like view the rankings of like how many millions of views each like cable network was getting a week. Like every night, the 9 o'clock primetime spot was getting this many views on this channel. Like, and yes, that still exists, but it doesn't exist in the same level for streamers. Like Netflix doesn't offer those metrics to the public. Like, and I think the arguments that are made to the public when shows like this are canceled or not renewed or brought to an inconclusive end, or whatever the verbiage they want to use, there is a real breakdown in that communication because there aren't hard numbers being shared publicly. It's like, well, from my perspective as a viewer, everyone I know watched it, and we were loud on Twitter about it, and we like rented billboards and put skywriters in the sky, and we were loud and proud about wanting to watch this show. So what from your perspective, why is this not a sound investment for you? Is it because you sunk too much money into season 1? Is it because you're not converting more subscribers? Like, I think being more specific as to what streamers want from audiences will actually motivate audiences to act in their favor. Because if Netflix needs more subscriptions and there's a diehard fan base behind a certain series, that certain fandom is going to find a way to get those subscribers. Like if they're going to put skywriters and billboards up, they'll get you more subscriptions. Like I there is this secrecy and weird like breakdown in the communication and like lack of transparency, both for the creators, creatives, anyone working behind the scenes in the artistic production of these shows, as well as from the consumer side. And I think when both of those groups are treated as the enemy or less than or not valued by the like big studio perspective, it creates like this animosity that like nobody wants. And like it's bad press. Like I don't understand where the lack of willingness for that transparency is coming from. That was a lot of words in a lot of different points.
No, it was you. That's exactly where my train of thought was going on this as well. Like, I don't understand, like we know on a take the viewer out of it level, the lack of transparency benefits the people at the top always. Relevant thought to me personally. Been thinking through this a lot. Like not having access into why decisions are made, like prevents people from ever being able to speak out against it, right? Then I think about streaming services specifically, right? And I've been having this thought throughout the week preparing for this episode. I feel like if you were to put streaming services on a scale right now, Netflix was the first into the scene, and it feels like Netflix is the first leaving the scene because they constantly have not listened to audience feedback. On the opposite end of the scale, HBO's been dominating streaming with the way that they've set up like the appointment viewing shows since House of the Dragon, into The White Lotus, into Last of Us, into Succession, right? Like they've dominated that Sunday primetime slot.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter what else was on TV. It was because they were able to set up that schedule and just keep the good shows coming in a way that really listened to how people wanted to watch it. Same with Euphoria before all of that, right? Like they constantly had a show ready to launch in a way that really pleased people after listening to feedback from other audiences, from other streaming providers saying like, we're sick of you dropping a season all at once. Like, let us enjoy it piece by piece. And then in the middle of that, you have streamers like Prime, right, who are far from perfect and far from the top of the pile, but have kind of been experimenting with like drop a whole season at once, give you a chunk of a season at a time in a shorter time span, give you appointment viewing on a week-by-week basis, but it's like a Wednesday or a Thursday. And Disney Plus has been doing the same thing, experimenting with that, like how they do it. And it's like those are streaming providers that are like listening in some ways, not in other ways, but in some ways trying to find the most optimal way of letting people come in. And then you have Netflix with properties like this, one of the best-selling books of like the late 2010s into the 2020s, huge fan base that you could commercialize so quickly with, and you're like butchering it, right? And they do it time and time again with these series. So that's where I get a little bit lost in all of this. Like, I don't understand, like whatever gap is happening, it's so evident with this show. And I think that's why Rolling Stone kind of picked this one up, because it's like one of the worst examples on Netflix's part of having that like gap exist. Even the Shadow and Bone social media team is like so on the nose with the community and like the language that they use, the language they use on each platform, how they share content, how they create original content, the behind the scenes content that they share. Like they really understand it on the ground level. So it's like, what's the miscommunication between the underpaid social media managers and content creators that are assigned to this show and the top? It's interesting. Again, another very long rant. Alexis, do you have any thoughts around all of this?
No, not really. I mean, I think you and Marissa brilliantly covered all of the like technical streaming stuff that I find fascinating in this conversation. What stands out to me, and I haven't interacted with this fandom, so I don't know how big or vocal they are, right? But I think there is a history throughout television as a media of kind of being more easily pushing aside a show like Shadow and Bone that feels like dystopian and magical and like a little bit different, like feels like the type of show that would have a quote unquote cult following rather than like a mainstream audience. That there's always been a tendency to kind of push those shows aside, whether they're doing well or not. And perhaps in contrast to the ways that those movies seem to be well received and to do really well, I don't think television has ever quite hit that with that type of story. And one of the things that I think particularly bothers me about that kind of loops back to what I understood to be one of the conversations about the writer's strike, which had to do with like residual for these types of streaming shows where they don't know like how many times they're being rewatched, and so they're not getting residual money for that. I think shows like this are also shows that cultivate the type of audience that's going to watch it 6 times, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so like, even though it may not be like my mom and dad sitting down to watch the show every week, like it is a show that's going to get more viewings than anticipated maybe in the long run, because people are going to watch it over and over again. Mm-hmm. I think as somebody who has always been a fan of the more cult, like quote unquote cult shows, I have just always been in a position where like whatever I love is going to be canceled 4 seasons in for no reason. So I think I missed a lot of the nuance of like how this is different because it's on a streaming platform rather than, you know, airing on TV where they may have a better understanding of the metrics.
So interesting. So interesting. My brain feels very well fed. Much like our nose, in which we keep saying that we feel well.
No.
My God, there's so much to unpack here, and we're already towards the end of the episode. So why don't we take a few minutes and go through some of the notes that we left that we thought were worth highlighting. There's so many. There's so many, especially Alexis really hit it home once again with the memes that you dropped amongst your notes. Shall we do some going through our notes and sharing some highlights, some of our slays, or not slays, whatever we want to share?
Yeah.
Shall we do it? Okay. Okay, I can't start because I was looking at Alexis' notes and not mine. So I need to go through and find some of my highlights. Marissa, do you want to start?
Yes, I will start with a blanket statement. I wrote probably upwards of 20 times within my viewing of these 5 episodes. I wrote the words, "I love you, Liz." And I would just like Liz and Alexis to know that anytime I wrote that, I was thinking something very mean. So I wrote that instead.
You wrote that in like
want
the
to hurt,
southern, like, bless your heart.
I didn't want to hurt Elizabeth. And so instead of writing the mean thing that I knew would later be explained to me, I just channeled that into love.
I wrote, Elizabeth, this is not what I expected. And then wrote, every time I thought a mean thing, I just wrote traumatizing in like all caps.
It's true.
So traumatizing.
It's true. It's true. And then there's me just writing, like I've already said, I wrote over and over again, just where I love you, etc. There was me making fun of Mal a lot in the first episode. Like, I'll find my way back to you. Okay. Grisha women scare me, Mal, please. So there was a lot of me making passive aggressive notes about everything that Mal says. That was where I came in on the passive aggressive front. Marissa, anything else you want to share?
Yeah. One of my very early notes goes to my appreciation and lack of appreciation for magic, in which I wrote, "How do I explain I love magic sparkly emojis, but not magic fireball emojis?" I think that makes sense.
Yeah. Checks out for me. Alexis?
I'm including this because I cannot remember what it was in reference to, but for some reason I've written, "Is this a sex thing? Update, it is a sex thing." I have no clue what it was.
Was it about Zoya and Mal, and Zoya being like, "Oh, I take a tumble before I go on the voyage through the fold"?
Oh, maybe. Because it is before Make Me Disappear. So, yeah.
Could be that. In a similar moment, in the beginning of episode 1, when it gets announced that Mal's going on the voyage, I said, "Oh, boo, you're going on the death ship. We didn't see that coming." And I wrote that specifically because that was a moment when I thought to myself, Marissa is going to hate how dystopian trope following this show is. And I was right.
Yeah, I didn't hate it.
On death mission, ooh, didn't see that coming.
I didn't hate it. I actually appreciated it because it was one of my only tethers to reality, because I was so confused by the aesthetics. But I guess, is that to that point? This is not to that point at all. But one of the other notes I wanted to flag is in episode 2, when we're more primarily introduced to Ben Barnes, I wrote, "Why is he important? Like, he's Ben Barnes, but why is he special?" And honestly, I don't think there needs to be more of an answer. He's Ben Barnes. That's why he's special.
It's true. It's true. Alexis?
I have a lot of notes that are positive about the glitter canopy, which also did not suit alleged time period, but like I didn't care because it was a glitter canopy. But then I have a lot of negative notes about that stupid veil.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the veil really left much to be desired, and I would love to figure out if there's a book. I'm sure there's a book description for it, right? Like that must be something that they pulled, and I'm sure it was probably beautifully described, and then she got this like little situation.
I will also say I have left notes that I'm assuming were from the first time that we met Ben Barnes that say, "Who are you?" followed by, "Nice to meet you, where you from?"
That's Ben Barnes. 1,000%. 1,000%.
Absolutely.
Did you guys watch episode 2? It was optional viewing.
I did.
Okay, Alexis, because you like Alexander, it's a gory episode and it's a slow episode, but you should watch it because you enjoy him. And that's really the entire episode is just about his building his relationship with Alina before we know who she is. Like that's the entire thing. But they're riding on a horse together, and she asks him to stop, and he's like, "Why?" And she's like, "Because my tailbone is killing me." And I was like, "Mood, my tailbone hurts all the time, mood." Anyway, and then also in that scene, Kerrigan's horse, the mane is really beautifully braided. So then I now have a headcanon that Alexander really lovingly braids the horse.
It's totally something he would do.
Yeah. And he also squints in that scene because they're outside. And Ben Barnes doesn't squint in any other scenes until they shoot outside again in season 2. So I was like, oh, there's squinty Ben Barnes. Like that is Ben Barnes not being able to keep his eyes open in the outdoor shot.
That's what it looks like when a vampire has to go in the daytime.
Correct. Marissa, anything else you want to highlight? Another round?
Yeah, just one more. At the very end of episode 5, I think this really sums up my perspective on the whole show. I know the lore was important, but why did we have 4 episodes of blah when we could have had this?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This referring to making out.
Mm-hmm.
Who was making out?
Alexander and
my makeout scene. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The making out. Well, I mean, there were
lift that I was like.
There were many makeouts in episode 5, honestly.
We also got a very breathy "Are you sure?" which I think is always a good. I will say I have a lot of notes about Anastasia and I have a lot of Harry Potter notes, but my note introducing my other favorite character, Milo the goat, says, "Oh look, gay Malfoy casually walking with a baby goat." Honestly, though, did I miss something? Why does he just have this fucking goat? And then, promptly in all caps, "Is this goat going to die?"
Which was then followed with the text asking me if the goat was going to die. And I was like, I would never make you watch a show where the beloved pet dies, Alexis. But Milo is a callback joke that comes up many times in season 3 beyond the episodes that you watch, or season 1 beyond what you watch. So, yeah. I don't think I wrote any notes about Milo, actually.
I don't think I did either, but I did greatly enjoy No, the goat's for you. Hug the goat.
Right? It was such a funny bit that they brought in. It didn't make any sense to me the first time I watched it. I was like, that's ridiculous. And the second time I was like, I see it. There's a bit in episode 4. This is the last one I'll share. Before we have to highlight more of what Alexis did. We have to go through the memes and Alexis' notes because they were absolutely killer. In episode 4, there's a moment with Alina at the castle. It's like an intro. It's like a segue into another scene with her from The Crows. And she's outside and the mail carrier comes up and she goes, "Anything for me?" And the extra that's the mail carrier's like, and walks away. And it's the most sassy head shake I've ever seen in my life. I thought for sure Marissa was going to catch it, but I don't know if you did.
No.
It's the most sassy, steal the spotlight for the 2 seconds you have it move I've ever seen an extra make on any of the shows that we've watched. So I really enjoyed it. We have to talk about some of the notes that Alexis left.
Alexis is really bringing multimedia to our notes section.
I feel like my use of memes and GIFs is just further proof that I am now recognizing a trend that happened 10 years ago for the first time. But thank you. Yes.
Oh my God. You did leave, I think, for the first time an Anakin Skywalker meme in your notes. I don't think we've ever had Anakin visit us in the show doc before. Would you like to share more with the class?
There are, my family is a family that reuses quotes over and over and just casual conversation like it's normal. And then people look at you like the heck are you referencing? There are a couple Star Wars quotes that we use, and one is the I have the high ground. Every argument I've ever had with my brother, right? But my brother also thinks that this line from Anakin is hysterical, and it's the not only the men but the women. And the children too. And there's a line somewhere in, I don't know, episode 5, where somebody's like, the women, the children, and all I could think of was Anakin slaughtering the younglings. So it made it into the notes.
And then not 4 bullet points later, you do a hard transition into Taylor Swift Eras Tour memes.
Yeah. I would also like to say, I wanted a better... I wanted someone to have done an animated Taylor Swift popping up out of the mop cart. And one of my favorite content creators is a woman of color. She's an astronaut and a mom. Her daughter is named Delta V after one of the shuttle missions. And they do a lot of space and mom and daughter content. And they are going to the Eras Tour together. And their mom and daughter costume is the mom dressed up as a maintenance person and Delta V in the cart as Taylor Swift and pink sparkles, and she pops out of the cart with a microphone, which is brilliant because strollers and the whole nine. So that's what I wanted. That is not what I found, but I was like, listen, Marissa, we'll get that I am comparing main female character climbing into this trunk as Taylor Swift in the broom cart. So
the thing that I loved even more about this reference though, but it's also in relation to the moment when the crows who are supposed to be stealing her are job well done. She made her own way into our vehicle. Let's escape. And I adding that lore to that example of the crew members being we have Taylor Swift in a box. Our work is done. So good. So good. I need to end this conversation by just stating on record for everyone that if we don't get a Six of Crows spinoff, I will be posting the world is ending, because I need to see a true heist from the Crows. We do not have, by the end of season 2, all of the Crows united. And they actually poke fun at this at the end of season 2, because the Six of Crows is these 3. Nina, who you met and Marissa referred to as who is that lady? Remember her?
No, that's not who I referred to as who is that lady.
Who was that lady in your notes?
Genya.
Oh yeah,
I love her.
Yeah, she's slick.
Love her. Never learned her name.
That's very, very fair. I didn't realize that was her name until season 2, so that's fine.
Also love Nina. Love them both.
Nina's great. Nina is very hilarious in season 2. Because she can feel people's energy, so she reads everyone to filth constantly, and it's really great. It's really funny. She'll be like, "You're embarrassed," and no, you literally, I can feel you're literally embarrassed right now. Tell the class why you're. It's very funny. She's very good. But the Six of Crows are these 3: Nina, Matthias, who's the guy that she loves, the big tall guy, and then Wylan, who we do meet and joins this crew, and then is in love with Jesper. And if we don't get the 6 of them on screen together, I will be very mad. So Netflix, that is your warning that you're going to have We'll Throw the After Party after you if you do not give us a Six of Crows spinoff. The writers of the show are all picketing and posting photos, which is great. They're with the WGA, so you can support them on Twitter. And we'll be back next week. What are we talking about next week, gang? Guardians of the Galaxy?
That's what we said. I don't know if that's what we're going to end up talking about.
Yeah, one of us was told that they should not see that film because of sad animals. So I will not be seeing the film because of sad animals. At least until it comes out and I can see the sad animals while cuddling my happy animals in the comfort.
And I'm not sure if I'll be able to see it because it depends on if I can go into a movie theater with this thing. So we'll see what next week's episode is about. You can find out at After Party Show on all the platforms. That's our show. Let's wrap up. I'm producer Liz everywhere on the internet. That's where you can find me. And I'm probably just going to be screaming about Taylor Swift for the next week. that's what I've got in store for you. Marissa?
I'm at Miss Obobissa on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. And I will also be screaming about Taylor Swift and likely, I don't know, Disney, musical theater, the Wicked movie. Surely there'll be another leak this week. So all kinds of things.
Alexis?
I am at just Alexis Blake, and this summer I'm going to hopefully be doing some more thrift content, thrift store content that I'm excited about. And I also have a couple research projects I'm working on that I'm going to get some help crowdsourcing for. So those things will be coming soon this summer.
Exciting stuff. And Sly at SlyClone MC will be back from their internet break at some point. I think week after next.
Yeah, I think we've got another week
after next. So we're almost back with Sly, who we missed dearly.
Not me counting down the days.
And everybody watching as well. Probably Sly is greatly missed. But we will be back next week with a show that we do not know yet. And we'll let you know on Twitter and Instagram at After Party Show. And until then, enjoy your week and enjoy the surprise songs at tonight's Eras Tour. Bye, everyone.